follow me.
And I'm your friend to the end.
Demons to some, angels to others.
They're all dead.
You don't know what death is.
I love that intro, and I'm glad some of you guys did too. Just to let you know, I kind of ripped off of my own intro for Spitball Media. Except I used, fuck it, I'll get to it in a minute. I'm BshowBrian. How's everybody doing tonight? This is the B-Show podcast. I intended to do something completely original. Something that I came up with watching a meme, and I alluded to it last week, having to do with The Wizard of Oz. However, I started using ChatGPT recently, and I started messing around with it a little bit and trying to come up with some concept art. So it actually kind of took on a life of its own. So what I'm going to do is maybe next week and the week after, a two-part, maybe three, but two-part where I basically go through and with all the stuff I've just been playing with generating images and coming up with ideas for this weird universe. Maybe doing a two-parter with, the first talk about the story and what could be, and then show some art that goes along with it, which I think would be cool. It's almost like a pitch room with like I guess concept art, which is pretty neat. And then the next week, maybe we'll cast it. Well, I'll go through and I'll pull up the usual suspects for the Rob Zombie movies and the characters from the movie and drag and drop so you guys can see them on screen and you guys listening on the podcast can still hear it. But again, I'm BshowBrian. Welcome tonight, episode 3. I know I've done a couple others. Someone responded on YouTube like, first episode? Yeah, I've done other episodes before. This is the new frontier, like Star Trek. But yeah, welcome. I talk about horror movies, a lot of horror franchises, classic franchises. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. And also I like putting my spin on stuff and coming up with crazy shit stuff. Trying to watch my tone for YouTube. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the notification bell and subscribe, and I appreciate it. And if you're listening on the download, you can watch the episodes on YouTube so you can follow along with the graphics. Or if not, if you like listening on the audio, fine. I'm a podcast guy too, so rock on. Just make sure you leave me a review wherever you listen. So this week I wanted to do something different because I was kind of at a pinch. I was planning on doing something this week that I couldn't do till next week. And I sometimes troll around Reddit because there's fan theories, there's commentary, there's news about movie franchises and stuff. And I found something really interesting that I'd never heard before, and I wanted to share with you guys. Some of you may have heard this before. I have not. I thought it was very fascinating. I scoffed at it at first because a lot of fan theories don't hold a lot of weight. And I know they're not really connected and blah, 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 blah. But it's fun the way certain things kind of come together. So who knows where the inspiration lies. I apologize. I'm losing my voice. Had a lot of meetings today. Had a baseball game this afternoon. First 85-degree day. And, of course, there's no air conditioning on in my house. But we don't talk about that, right? We don't talk about Bruno. So before we get into the fan theory, I do want to say happy birthday to the late, great Kevin Castle. Kevin Castle is the brother of my podcast co-host, John Draper, at Spitball Media. Kevin Castle was a part of the legendary Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show, for lack of a better... It's just the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show. They're a Monday night staple. They were probably the longest running podcast post Monday Night Raw post show for wrestling. And they broke up a couple of years ago, did their separate things. They had just come back together over the last year or so. And for those of you who follow me or Spitball Media or John or Wrestling Soup or, again, Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle, the whole family of shows. Kevin passed away in April, I believe it was. And yeah, today was his birthday. He was a huge horror movie fan. He'd probably laugh at some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today. But I can actually hear it after years of listening to Kevin and being an acquaintance and a friend over the years. Even though I was not super close with him, we interacted quite a bit, especially for horror movies. And he had an affinity, especially for things like 80s horror. So I'm pretty sure it'll come up on Spitball Media. Obviously, John's still feeling it, and so are his brothers that I know personally. And I just hope everyone's doing all right. And I know, I don't know what I believe in anymore, but I believe Kevin's somewhere. And we all miss him, man. So, on to the matters at hand. I was trolling around Reddit, and I found an interesting fan theory that, I don't know, it's like I started reading it and it didn't hold water, and then I started reading it and some other things were interesting. So I just want to play with this here. Possible spoilers for Mary Poppins Returns and It Chapter 2. Now, I've never seen Mary Poppins Returns, and I don't know if I finished It Chapter 2. I know I finished the first one. And it's cut off here. All right. Now, this sounds crazy, right? Pennywise and Mary Poppins are members of the same species, and they work on the rules set out by Monsters, Inc. All right, I'm just going to go line by line because there's numerous on here. And just going to react to it in real time because I read the first couple and I didn't want to finish. But here we go. And you guys let me know. Comment section below. What do you think about this crazy stuff, you know? And who comes up with this? What's this guy? Humanoid Mold 5. Okay. This is from 2012. So obviously it's... I don't know what the rules of Reddit are, if I'm supposed to be sharing this or not, but oh well, they can tell me. 6-year-old? No. Was that 4-year-old? 3-year-old? No. 12-year-old. Holy shit. 2012? No, that's fan theories. I'm an idiot. I told you I'm tired. So this was, I think, 6 years ago. Maybe not. Yeah, 6 years ago in the fan theories Reddit. So if you like these fan theories, like to read about them, go check them out there. So, all right, here's the background and the theory. Each, being Mary Poppins or Pennywise, returns every 20-something years. Pennywise is 27, Mary Poppins is 25. All right, well, there's a difference right there. I know it's 2 years, but if it's the same species, then, well, wouldn't it be the same amount of years, right? To generate energy from a new group of children, but also have a tendency to return to those they met on their last visit. Pennywise returns to the Losers Club. Mary Poppins returns to the Banks family. Well, that's interesting, but also let's not forget they needed a reason to justify Mary Poppins reboot. So, I mean, storytelling, and that's the thing too, is like when I was younger, I was getting really into music, and I would hear similar sounding songs from popular artists. I'd be like, oh, they ripped off this band, and oh, they ripped off that band. And my brother, who's a musician, looked at me and he goes, dude, there's only so many chords. There's only so many combinations. So, okay, I have to concede that. Sometimes it's just happenstance. But all right, interesting. So Mary Poppins and It, Pennywise, I guess, both come around every 20-something years. They both feed on the energy from children. And they return to their first, the kids they met on their last visit. All right, so interesting. Mary Poppins manages to maintain energy for 25 years, despite interacting, there we go, yeah, with less children than Pennywise requires for 27. But that's because she relies on the children's joy, unlike Pennywise, who relies on their fear. And as proven in Monsters Incorporated, children's laughter is worth more than their fear. All right, now this is interesting. It is, okay, they're taking a leap of faith here, saying that Mary Poppins is feeding on the children's energy. But I don't know. That's where these things get weird, is my brain tries to make it way too logical to compare the two sides and to see what's really true. So I gotta not rely on that. But yes, if the assumption is that she feeds on their energy, then yeah, they're light creatures, and it would make sense that, you know, joy would energize her longer, I guess. Okay, so upon each of their returns, They draw a child named Georgie away from their siblings with a paper toy, that appear alongside that toy and return it to Georgie, which, if you know, in it, he steals Georgie's paper boat and says he's going to give it back to him to lure Georgie into the sewer. Right? Hello, Georgie. Hello, Georgie. I can't do the fudge. I can't do the voices tonight. Damn it. You guys are in for a treat. I won't bore you with those. And I guess Georgie's kite is returned to him by Mary Poppins. I was not aware of this because I've never seen that movie. Right? Interesting. Each has the same set of powers in which they can take advantage of what lies in children's minds. Mary Poppins uses their imagination. Pennywise uses their fear. Now that's interesting. But by that set of circumstances, then Freddy Krueger could be related to this. And maybe that's a crossover that, it's never going to happen. But maybe that's, Pennywise versus Freddy Krueger. They're both doing the same thing. Freddy's just doing it from their nightmares. They're both feeding on fear. Whereas Mary Poppins is feeding on their imagination. It's weird. It's just, like I said, everything hinges on that belief that she's feeding on them. Like a lamprey, is that what they are? That attach to sharks? Bottom feeders? Yeah, I don't know if I'm buying this yet. It is fun to think about that, like Mary Poppins and Pennywise will do battle. Like what is it? You can't see it if you're not watching on the screen. Lopan and what's his name? Egg? No, I can't. Damn it! It's too late. I can't think of the dude's name from Big Trouble in Little China. Shit. Yeah, it's Egg Shen, right? No, not Big Trouble. Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, Victor Wong. He plays Egg Shen. Yes, I was right. To the forces of evil. I love that movie. All right, so again, we have to take a leap of faith that Mary Poppins is actually feeding on the kids' happiness and imagination. But I digress. Mary Poppins has a living reflection that can function separately from her. Okay. Pennywise is shown to share this ability in It Chapter 2. All right. You're winning me over, okay? Because that's the thing. Like, Mary Poppins is like magic, right? She has the tape measure that shows the nature of people. She has the garment bag that you can pull everything out of. She fucking flies, for God's sakes. So she has magic powers, and she comes from the sky. And I may be stealing his thunder here, but doesn't Pennywise come from space? Isn't it like a multidimensional creature from space or something like that? I think that's the lore. Anyway. All right. But the reflection thing always kind of... I thought that was weird. That she could step away from her reflection, or the reflection could sing, or whatever it was. I haven't seen that movie since my kid was a baby. All right. In each of the stories, the parents are oblivious to the fantastical situations being experienced by the children. Yeah, but that's circumstantial because parents ignore their kids. That's not like this magical spell that he puts over them. It's the isolation, in it, and in a lot of other horror movies. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a big one. It's this generational thing where, especially more so in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even in the 50s, parents were not in tune with their kids. And it's funny how, like, boomers will tell me now that kids are so, misbehaved nowadays, and that parents were so much better back in the day. When it's an internet meme now, but they had to have Andy Warhol or Cyndi Lauper come on TV, or what was the one I just saw? Not Divine. She played Mayday in James Bond. Grace Jones. You had these celebrities coming on the TV at 10 o'clock at night saying, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Because people literally did not know where the kids were. That's why like the big Adam Walsh Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted craze happened in the 1980s. People weren't just surprised that kids were going missing. People were surprised they had kids. They just forgot, I guess. And kids were going everywhere, running around and getting lost and not coming home. I mean, that's really what it was. And on top of that, kids, I hear this to this day from old school people, like my in-laws. Back in my day, kids were to be seen and not heard, right? Yeah, they didn't want kids around. They didn't pay mind or attention to the kids. So part of that mythos, taking that to other franchises, of the parents being oblivious, it wasn't necessarily that, I think as intended here, or maybe I'm reading into it, that, and again, I'm psychoanalyzing a fucking fan theory. It wasn't that the parents couldn't see, it's that the parents wouldn't see. It's that isolationism of being a child and your parents not believing you. There's a lot of other movies. I can't think of the other films at this time just because my brain's into Mary Poppins and It Land. But there's a lot of other movies where it's like just you're on your own. You're on your own. Your parents can't help you. This is it. And that is because of that idea of isolationism and parents not believing kids, and that's what fed that idea, especially like the latchkey kids of the 1970s and 80s, where the parents left the key under the mat. You get off the bus, let yourself in the house, you make yourself a snack, you do your homework, you do whatever, and then when mom comes home, or when dad comes home. If someone comes, I remember being told this as a kid. My mom would go, not that my parents neglected us like this, but I remember my mom would go to the store and say, hey, I'm running to the store. I got to grab a couple of things. Your dad's at work. And, if anyone comes to the door, don't answer. I don't care who it is. If someone knocks at the door, don't answer. I remember my mom specifically before leaving telling me that, and I must have been like, I don't know, 8 or 9. They didn't leave us alone a lot. Not till I was older and could like watch my brother, or my older brother could watch me. But like that was even into the 90s a thing. It was like, I'll be gone for 25 minutes. I got to run to grandma's for something. Or I got to run to the store, or I got to whatever. If you guys want to stay home, don't open the door for anybody. And there's times when I was like 10 or 11. I was riding across town to my buddy's house on my bike. So no, I don't think it's a magical thing. So again, here I am treating this as if it's a serious collegiate matter here. See, I'm not buying that one necessarily. I think it's situational. The Losers Club forget their experiences as children until Pennywise returns. And although the Banks children do not forget Mary Poppins, they do forget that the magical experiences actually happened, and they remember Mary Poppins as just a nanny. All right, let me break that down. I'm going to take it piece by piece. The Losers Club forget their experiences as children until Pennywise returns. Don't you think that's allegory for repressed trauma? That they don't remember until they're faced with it? That they went through things that were so unbelievable? Now, unless it's spelled out in Stephen King's novels or whatever, then fuck me. But I just always thought that was allegory for repressed trauma. It wasn't that they can't remember. It's that they choose not to, and they block it, which is exactly why, in the beginning of the It miniseries, and people may cry foul on this because they may be talking about It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the newer movies. But in the beginning of, beginning to middle of the original It miniseries, I don't remember what the character's name was, but he was played by, oh God, Richard something, I think. No, not Richard Thomas. Come on. Richard Mazer. There we go. Richard Mazer played Stanley. In the beginning, Stanley gets the call, and he goes upstairs and draws himself a bath, and his wife finds him dead. He committed suicide rather than face what it was. And I know people could say, hey, it's because it's back and now people remember. But no, I think it was allegory for repressed childhood trauma. So I don't know if maybe it was supposed to be magical and I missed that, saw right through it. Next up would be the Banks children do not forget Mary Poppins. They forget the magical experience that happened, and they remember Mary Poppins as just a nanny. One thing is, if they wanted to reboot Mary Poppins and they want to have new kids, then that's a plot hole you can drive a Mack truck through if the parents remember Mary Poppins. You know what I mean? Because the idea of the original was Mr. Banks was too busy working and had no imagination. It was about losing your imagination. And the parents were beating it out of their kids. Not literally. That would have been a whole different movie. If Mr. and Mrs. Banks were flogging the kids because they have an imaginary friend or something, that would be terrible. But no, there were. It's again, that's the allegory. This is what this is: symbolism of, the square peg in the round hole. Sending kids to school in a factory-like environment, not machine learning, conveyor belt style, manufacturing style, where you send them all and you want them to conform and they learn the same things and you want them to develop the same skills. And then you have this illusion that you want them to be different and unique, but you really don't. It's really about becoming an obedient employee, a well-rounded person who knows enough to do enough things to where you can go and work in the workforce and be another cog in the machine. And look, I'm not going all hippie, even though I kind of do sometimes. It's necessary for our current state of economics, right? The gears need to move the machine. And that's what it's about. So to me, I always thought, no, that's... The parents were trying to have the kids conform, squeeze all the imagination out of them, make them little adults, make them very proper. Remember, it was in Britain. Michael, we must go here. We do not fly kites. We do not click our heels. What is this nonsense? Katie Nana, right? This very stuffy. It's fun. It's just, it's this very traditional, tightwad, tight-ass, British aristocratic upbringing that these kids have, and they're choking the imagination out of these kids. So to me, that's what it was. And like I said, if the parents remembered, then oh hey, Mary Poppins, hey, we remember you, blah 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 blah, right? So to me, I think it's symbolism, and I also think it's really if the parents remembered, then the story would be much less interesting. And let's remember, studios went through this phase where they want to reboot movies without admitting they're remakes. So they make the same movie as they made before, even if it doesn't matter, and they'll throw this catch in that the parents don't remember, which is fucking stupid. Stupid. If that's what Mary Poppins, the second one, is about, that she came down and she showed the kids how to use their imagination, and she shared that with the parents, and the parents learn to use their imagination again. That was the whole point of the first movie. God, I'm glad I didn't see that movie. Anyway, let's get back to the action here. Each has a love for singing and dancing, which should be obvious for Mary Poppins, but becomes clearer for Pennywise when you remember that he refers to himself as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Dances for Beverly in Chapter 1, sings for Richie in Chapter 2. Okay, so they are talking about the newer one specifically. Yeah, Pennywise the Dancing Clown. I'd have to look at the history of where the inspiration came from for the clown. Clowns, circus, whatever, was really popular in the 50s and Pee Wee Herman made Big Top Pee Wee. He was a circus performer, or trained with circus performers either way, when he was a kid. That was a much more popular thing in the 50s. So that bleeds over. It's almost like when you see movies of the 80s, and I've talked about this before on Spitball Media. You've got greasers and hot rods and leather jackets and slick back hair. Like, that was a carryover from the 50s and 60s, and those people who grew up during those times made movies in the 70s and 80s and carried that forward. So much like that, I think, inspired by the creepy, like the breakfast cereal commercials with these weirdo clowns, and you've got the early Ronald McDonald. You've got, not Howdy Doody, who was it? God, who was the clown? We used to reference him when I was a kid, and I don't think he was on anymore. Damn, who's the popular clown character? Bozo the Clown. There we go. There was still Bozo the Clown merchandise when I was a kid. People hate clowns now. I had a friend who had a clown magician at a birthday party. I mean, it was a much bigger thing. So, the dancing significance, it's a movie. There's going to be some kind of answer. I don't know. That one I'm not too sold on. All right. Next point. Pennywise is heavily associated with the song Oranges and Lemons, which is a song about old London, where Mary Poppins lives, showing that Pennywise has an awareness that another member of his species is out there, and he knows exactly where they're. Well, that's a fucking stretch, don't you think? He's heavily associated with the song Oranges and Lemons, which is a song about old London. He's not singing Mary Poppins Stepping Time. Like, you know what I mean? He's not singing songs from that universe. He's not naming Mary Poppins by name. He's not name-dropping other entities by name. See, this is my issue with fan theories. I like them, and I'm willing to go out on a limb. And Drew Yari, if you're listening to this, this is why I kind of scoff at them. Because people write shit and not to pick on the person who wrote this, because this is actually pretty cool. But, like, when you write these fan theories, you have to take these leaps of faith, and just people will state shit like it's truth. Like, yeah, Pennywise is associated with this song, which is about London, which obviously means that he knows there's another one out there. It's like, no. That would be like some guy who wears a Halloween 4 t-shirt from Fright Rags living in Tokyo, and I, for some reason, sing My Woman from Tokyo by, who was it? Who did it? Who did Perfect Strangers? Anyway, I'm not going to go off on a limb there. But because I sang My Woman from Tokyo, that I know about this guy who bought a Fright Rag shirt, who lives in Japan. Like, it's, again, not to pick on this guy, but come on, that's a stretch and a half. I pulled a fucking hamstring stretching on that one. Pennywise, next one, has a mystical light source called the Deadlights. And although we never see Mary Poppins' deadlights, it's likely she has them too. See, again, leap of faith. As in Mary Poppins Returns, she creates an imaginary crowd of lamplighters to sing the song Trip a Little Light Fantastic, which may possibly be her way of convincing the children to look into her deadlights without scaring them into it. It's proven that these lamplighters are fake and created by Mary Poppins, as when Michael hears the children singing outside and opens the door, he sees only Mary Poppins and the children, and all the lamplighters appear to have vanished. Okay. Again, leap of faith. Leap of faith. Well, I made a clay pot, which means that I created Clayface from Batman. It's strange. Although that was interesting insight because, as I mentioned earlier, I thought Mary Poppins, the whole thing was about, like, she showed the parents and the kids the magic of imagination, the things you can do. But was the whole understanding that she wasn't really doing those things, the crazy shit with the kids? Like the pulling stuff out of the duffel bag and carpet bag, sorry. And having the kids toys march and didn't jump into the paintings. Like, what about Bert? Was Bert a complete figment? I will not tolerate this shaming of the great name of Dick Van Dyke, for God's sakes. Oh, man. Suck my Dick Van Dyke, if that's what you think. No. Magic of television. Anyway. So, yeah, I think, all right, this is starting to lose steam here. Again, this sounds like a class project. Someone's really trying to make this make sense. All right, so at the end of Mary Poppins Returns, this is the final one. The characters all grab balloons and float into the air. And balloons and floating are both highly associated with Pennywise. Okay, they're also highly associated with children. And it was established in the original Mary Poppins that she could float with her umbrella. And at the end of Mary Poppins Returns, the characters all grab balloons and float into the air. Balloons floating. I don't know. Again, this is... This is one reason I hate this shit. Because I love it, but I hate it. It's fun. Yeah, I'm not buying this. I like the idea more than what this guy has actually detailed. It's interesting to think about. There's some weird similarities thematically, and if you want to draw those conclusions and creatively weave them together, fine. It's fun. It's a fun little concept. But I also think that it's, like I said, I pulled a hamstring making a jump on that one leap of faith. So, I don't know. I'm not buying this. I think it's cool to think of Mary Poppins, if she is like that. What's her true form then, right? Isn't Pennywise one of his true forms like a giant all-seeing eye? Or in the movie, he takes the form of like a giant spider monster and shit. Like what's Mary Poppins? I'm trying to think of what. Maybe I'll ask ChatGPT. Okay. Oh, here we go. Guys, this is what we're gonna do. You guys can thank Shaheen from Spitball Media for turning me onto this. I gotta move not that one. Where's my screen? Here we go. All right. So, if Mary Poppins, we're going to do this in real time. If Mary Poppins is the same species as Pennywise from It, but she's the positive, loving version, and Pennywise's true form is a spider monster, what would Mary Poppins, what's say final form? Oh, true form be? All right, here we go. We're gonna see. What does ChatGPT say about this? You guys may or may not be able to read it. It's kind of small. Celestial matron of order and whimsy. Towering angelic figure made of constellations and clouds with a lattice work of clock gears and music notes woven through her form. So like a music box made of constellations and cloud, like space clouds. Jesus, like nebula. She's a nebula. That's pretty sick, dude. Dozens of umbrella-like appendages floating around her, each a portal to different realities or memories. Her eyes might be spinning galaxies or bottomless teacups filled with swirling stardust. Holy shit. Less cough syrup, ChatGPT. Or living nursery of the universe. Surreal, ever-shifting storybook garden shaped like a vaguely humanoid silhouette. Flowers bloom in sync with children's laughter. Every part of her form is composed of familiar, soothing things from childhood. Quilts, carousel horses, kite tails, chalk drawings that animate and shift. Her voice is not words, but a medley of lullabies and warm wind chimes. Dude. Or the umbrella tree, a towering tree-like being with an umbrella canopy instead of leaves. Her bark is smooth like porcelain, with windows that look into children's dreams. Her roots stretch through dimensions when she moves. Yeah, so basically like the most nice, comforting things that harken back to childhood. I want to see the celestial matron of whimsy. I'm going to see if it can draw me something up real quick. Please illustrate this. Oops. No, not that one. See what happens? Image creation limit. I can't do it until tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So, all right, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'll keep an eye on this and hopefully it generates. But if it does, I will put this in the cover art for this week's show and you guys will see it. What do you guys think? I just wanted to do something different this week. kind of buying a little time for the Rob Zombie. Oh, here we go. Don't I have, where's the images? So I did create some images for the Rob Zombie Wizard of Oz stuff. Here we go. I'm going to share this real quick with you guys. I don't want to ruin too much, but I want to give you guys a quick preview. I'm going to enlarge this here for those watching on YouTube. Again, that's at BshowBrian or at BshowPodcast. All right, so basically, a couple of things. I put in a graphic prompt that was basically the Wizard of Oz floating head, except it looks like Rob Zombie's floating head from the posters, like Living Dead Girl and what's the other one? Anyway, and I wanted to float over like a judge's bench in a dilapidated courtroom, and I had Dorothy there and described what I wanted for Dorothy with her giant monster pit bull, Toto. And I'll explain why this makes sense. But no, it's this is the first one that came up. I like the zombie head. I like the colors. I gave it quite a bit of input too. And this was the second one because I figured, okay, that's got to look like Sherry Moon Zombie, right? Because it's Dorothy. But that might not even be the case. Tune in next week and we'll find out. Now that I said next week, we're going to do this. At least the casting probably 2 weeks out. That'd be a fun little episode. So that's the alternate one with the same concept, right? The floating Oz head that looks like Rob Zombie. Toto, the devil dog. So then I said, okay, how about we do the Tin Man? What's the Tin Man, right? And again, I'll talk more about this next week. But I basically wanted a Tin Man made out of copper because in a poor or a rundown neighborhood, people would have been scrapping, right? So this Tin Man's made out of copper piping instead of tin. And I also wanted him to look kind of thematically like a heroin addict, like someone who's strung out. Just because it has to do with to drive the decay feeling of the Rob Zombie Wizard of Oz world. And then the last one I'll show you is this one. You may wonder, what the hell is it? No, it's not flying monkeys. It's flying junkies. So that's as far as I got. I've got a lot of other ideas. What I want to do, I don't want to go through and go beat by beat. This is what happens. This is what happens. But I really want... The more I started coming up with images and ideas and ChatGPT, like the one thing I found out about it is you can just give it what you want and it'll put out what you ask for with its spin or interpretation. And you can give it certain flavors. What I found for me, and I'm going to use this to possibly start writing again, like come up with like a book of short stories. I may even start developing a screenplay because it's something I've always wanted to do. Excuse me. But there's two ways you can use ChatGPT. You can let it go and let it fill in all these gaps and refine it and refine it and refine it. Or you can throw ideas out like this. I was trying to figure things out, and as I'm thinking through the process, I came up with flying junkies because I was like, okay, I got stuck on, not the Tin Man. I got stuck on the Cowardly Lion. I'm like, where would that come from? And I start thinking, it spit out some landmarks for me, like a mall and a this and a that. And I'm thinking about like, okay, well, let's move on from the lion because I don't know. I'll figure that out. But like flying monkeys, flying monkeys, flying monkeys. And I figured flying junkies because it's Rob Zombie. So that's where I came up with these. And then that hits me, and it's weird. It's like the more I give to it, the more it gives back to me. And I try to avoid using what it gives me because I want this to be mine. I want it to be my ideas and my story with input from ChatGPT, with brainstorming, consulting, whatever. If you are in a writer's block, I suggest signing up for ChatGPT. I think I'm going to buy the paid edition maybe the next month or two and really put some projects together. But I was a late adopter, and I know I slammed it a lot, but I'm telling you, man, look at this. Wait, I think there's another one. Where'd it go? Mary Poppins True Form. Oh, it's almost done. That's kind of lame. Here. Kind of lame. They did the one that I didn't want them to do. Yeah, it's probably going to tell me it can't illustrate anything till tomorrow. But Yeah, you've hit your free plan limit. Resets in 17 hours. Fuck. Okay. Well, we may not get this until much later, so I'll share it with you when I have it. But anyway, what do you guys think? I got way off track. What do you guys think? Would you want to see a crossover with Mary Poppins and It? I don't know.
Hello, Brian. Would you like to see a crossover with Mary Poppins and It? Perhaps Mary Poppins and It 2 in battle? Perhaps they go on a celestial binge? Perhaps they fight each other up on the stars? Perhaps they strangle each other with a galaxy?
That's for you Family Guy people out there. And again, my voice is failing me. I'm BshowBrian. This is a glimpse into my mad, mad, mad world. Thank you for letting me open my closet door and come out for a little bit. Speaking of that, I watched the Paul Rubens Pee-wee As Himself documentary. I'm going to do a bonus show for the Patreon at Spitball Media, hopefully this week sometime, maybe next week, depending on when I get to it. I've got a lot of thoughts, and I may talk about non-horror stuff on my channel from time to time. But, you know, the more I follow his life and other works and more about other people who are very creative, especially during the 70s and 80s, and who are repressed, it's occurred to me, not as far as the persecution, but there's a lot of people living in closets that has nothing to do, a lot of them with even being gay. So, tough. It was a tough watch, being a kid and a huge fan of Pee Wee Herman. I'm kind of torn on the man. It's almost like Chris Benoit. I can appreciate the art and the legacy and the talent because he was immensely talented. Meant a lot to my life, honestly, as a kid who was a little bit off. However, I had some issues with the documentary and the way some of the arrest stuff was presented, given there's a lot of public evidence out there, but not evidence. There's a lot of public details out there, and some things were glossed over, some things I think are excused, but I think at this point, much like anything in politics or in the public eye, celebrity, if you like someone or if you're for a cause, you will excuse things that are done or not look the other way, but like believe what you want to believe. And if you're against a cause or if you're not for something, you will believe what you want to believe. And there's not going to be any in between. And with this one, it's tough. So I'm going to get more into that on the Spitball Media Patreon. So patreon.com/spitballmedia. And you can check that out. $5 a month. That's the only tier we have. I'll be doing that next week, along with our question and answer show coming up. So I'm BshowBrian. That's all the time I got tonight. Thank you for joining me. Leave your comments and rage and pitchforks at in the comment section, or hit me up, bshowbrian@gmail.com. I'm out of here. Hopefully you guys thought that was fun or crazy. And either way, let me know. Peace.